In Paris, a political earthquake has struck, shaking the very foundations of the French government. On September 8, 2025, Prime Minister François Bayrou's government was toppled in a dramatic no-confidence vote, a moment that will be etched in the annals of French political history. The National Assembly's verdict was clear: 364 against, 194 in favor, far surpassing the threshold needed to bring down the government. This overwhelming majority highlighted the deep discontent within the ranks of the lawmakers. This collapse comes as France faces economic hardship and deep political division, sending shockwaves across Europe. The streets of Paris have been filled with protests, and the economic strain is visible in the shuttered shops and growing unrest. The immediate trigger was Bayrou's unpopular austerity plan, which lawmakers and citizens alike saw as too harsh. The plan aimed to cut public spending drastically, but it was met with fierce resistance from all corners of society. The roots of this crisis stretch back to President Macron's snap election in 2024, which left Parliament fractured and ungovernable. The election, intended to solidify Macron's mandate, instead resulted in a fragmented political landscape. Since then, every prime minister has struggled to hold together a fragile coalition. The constant infighting and lack of consensus have made governance nearly impossible. Now, with Bayrou's resignation imminent, Macron must appoint a fourth prime minister in just a year, tasked with uniting a deeply divided parliament. This new leader will face the daunting challenge of bridging the gap between warring factions. France stands at a crossroads, its future uncertain as leaders scramble to restore stability. The coming months will be crucial in determining whether the nation can overcome its current turmoil and find a path forward. At the center of the storm is François Bayrou, a veteran centrist whose decades-long career has made him a familiar face in French politics. Known for his calm demeanor and reputation as a consensus builder, Bayrou was called upon during a moment of national uncertainty, when France's economic future seemed to hang in the balance. He was brought in to steady the ship, tasked with restoring confidence in a government facing mounting pressure from both the public and international markets. But his proposed 2026 budget, a sweeping austerity plan slashing 44 billion euros in spending, sparked immediate outrage across the country. The scale of the cuts was unprecedented, and the announcement sent shockwaves through both Parliament and the streets. The plan included scrapping two beloved public holidays and freezing government spending for years to come, a move that would touch nearly every aspect of daily life in France. For many, these measures were seen as direct attacks on the cherished French way of life, on family time, tradition, and the social fabric that binds communities together. Bayrou argued passionately that these cuts were not just necessary but urgent, insisting that without decisive action, France risked spiraling into a full-blown debt crisis that could threaten its future prosperity. He warned lawmakers that ignoring economic reality would only worsen the burden for future generations, painting a stark picture of what might lie ahead if nothing changed. But despite his warnings and appeals, Bayrou's message fell flat among many of his colleagues, who remained unconvinced by his arguments. Lawmakers and the public alike saw the measures as deeply unfair, targeting ordinary people and threatening the public services that millions depend on every day. The backlash was swift and fierce. Bayrou's attempt at fiscal discipline quickly became his undoing, as criticism mounted from all sides. His short tenure ended in turmoil, with Bayrou stepping down amid a storm of controversy and public anger. In the end, his plan was rejected as both politically and socially toxic, leaving his legacy in question. The episode left France more divided than ever, with citizens and politicians alike struggling to find common ground in the aftermath. As the dust settled, one thing was clear: the search for solutions to France's economic woes would be long and difficult, with no easy answers in sight. Bayrou's downfall was sealed by his own bold move, invoking Article 49.3 of the Constitution to force his budget through. This nuclear option dared Parliament to oust him rather than accept austerity. Instead, opposition parties from left and right united, filing a no-confidence motion. For Marine Le Pen's far-right and the left-wing coalition, it was a chance to block austerity and push for new elections. The result? 364 votes against the government, a resounding defeat. Bayrou's gamble backfired spectacularly, exposing the weakness of Macron's presidency and the deep divisions in parliament. The episode proved that governing by force is no longer viable in France's fractured political landscape. The government's collapse has set the stage for even greater uncertainty. The question now, can anyone govern in this environment? France's political crisis is inseparable from its economic troubles. The two are now locked in a dangerous dance, each fueling the other and making solutions harder to find. As the government struggles to maintain stability, the economic situation continues to deteriorate, casting a long shadow over the country's future. Public debt has soared to 3.346 trillion euros, 114% of GDP, far above sustainable levels. This staggering figure is not just a statistic. It represents a growing burden on every French citizen and a warning sign for the entire Eurozone. The government's ability to borrow and spend is now severely constrained, limiting options for economic recovery. Servicing this debt now eats up 7% of state spending, while the budget deficit stands at nearly double the EU's limit. This means less money for essential services and investments, and growing pressure from Brussels for urgent reforms. The government faces tough choices: cut spending, raise taxes, or risk further isolation within Europe. Investors are demanding higher interest rates, and France faces a likely credit downgrade, which would further raise borrowing costs. International markets are watching closely, and any sign of instability sends shockwaves through the financial system, making it even more expensive for France to finance its debt. The threat of a financial spiral looms, with higher debt payments making deficit reduction even harder. If borrowing costs continue to rise, France could be forced into painful austerity measures, deepening the social and political crisis already gripping the nation. Bayrou's austerity plan was a desperate attempt to reassure markets, but its defeat has only deepened uncertainty. The government's inability to pass tough reforms has shaken investor confidence and left many wondering if France can avoid a full-blown financial crisis. Meanwhile, ordinary French citizens feel the pain. Prices for everyday goods are rising, wages remain stagnant, and public services are under threat. Many families are struggling to make ends meet, and frustration is growing as the cost of living crisis deepens. Anxiety over healthcare, pensions, and education is fueling anger and unrest. Strikes and protests have become a regular feature of French life, as people demand action from leaders who seem unable to deliver real solutions. The economic crisis feeds the political one, creating a vicious cycle. As trust in institutions erodes, the risk of further instability grows, threatening not just France, but the stability of the entire European Union. France's leaders face a daunting challenge: restore confidence and unity before the crisis spirals out of control. The choices they make in the coming weeks will shape the nation's future for years to come. Bayrou's fall marks the fourth prime minister in a year, a sign of deep political paralysis. The turmoil began after Macron's snap election shattered his majority, leaving parliament in deadlock. Gabriel Attal, then Michel Barnier, and finally Bayrou all failed to build lasting coalitions. Each new government has been weaker, hostage to opposition parties more interested in political games than solutions. The rapid turnover erodes public trust and makes real reform nearly impossible. France is stuck in a cycle of crisis, with no leader able to break the deadlock. The nation wonders, can anyone govern in these conditions? All eyes now turn to President Macron, isolated and weakened, but determined to finish his term. His immediate task: appoint a new prime minister who can survive a confidence vote. No easy feat. Names like Sébastien Lecornu and Gérald Darmanin are floated, signaling another attempt to woo the center-right. But simply changing leaders may not end the crisis. The opposition, led by Marine Le Pen, demands new elections, hoping to capitalize on their momentum. Macron faces grim choices: risk a far-right government, attempt a unity coalition, or install a caretaker administration. Each path is fraught with peril, and none guarantees stability. Macron's next move will define his legacy and France's immediate future. The opposition is seizing the moment. Marine Le Pen calls for dissolving parliament and new elections, confident her party can win. The left celebrates the defeat of austerity, pushing for more social spending and a reversal of Macron's reforms. But unity is already fracturing as each side jockeys for power. Public anger is boiling over. 2/3 of voters want Macron to resign, and mass protests are planned. Trade unions, emboldened by victory, are organizing a nationwide strike to demand wage hikes and block any return to austerity. The streets are tense, the country on edge. Whoever forms the next government will face a volatile, mobilized opposition both inside and outside Parliament. France is a tinderbox, and the next spark could ignite widespread unrest. The crisis in Paris is rippling far beyond the capital. In New Caledonia, crucial negotiations over autonomy are stalled, with local leaders frustrated by Parisian paralysis. Economic aid is delayed, fueling resentment and uncertainty in France's overseas territories. Back home, trade unions are preparing a massive general strike, determined to keep austerity off the table and win pay raises. The government's collapse also weakens France's global standing, sidelining it in international affairs at a time of global instability. Allies worry, adversaries watch for openings. France's internal chaos threatens its influence abroad and its ability to lead in Europe. The stakes are global, not just national. As of September 9, 2025, France stands at a crossroads. Its government collapsed, its economy strained, its people restless. Macron must somehow form a government that can function amid a hostile parliament and public fury. The stakes are enormous. A debt crisis threatens prosperity, while austerity is politically toxic. Political instability is fueling extremism and eroding the social contract. Europe watches anxiously. A weakened France undermines the EU's ability to act on global challenges. The world needs a stable France, but the path forward is unclear. The coming weeks will bring high-stakes decisions and political maneuvering. The outcome will shape Macron's legacy and France's future. The world is watching as Paris faces its most critical test in decades.